De Cuba. He's out there on the eastern side of the island. And he's arriving at Joint Base Andrews. Back in the old days, it used to be called Andrews Air Force Base. But now it's Joint Base Andrews because there's a whole lot of joint stuff going on there. It's not just an Air Force base now. And what's really remarkable is that Obama and Muchel are going to be there to greet the Pope as he descends the stairs. You know, Reagan didn't even go to Joint Base Andrews to meet Gorbachev. This just isn't done. It is very, very rare that a sitting president heads out to a concrete tarmac to greet an arriving anybody. I think he might have done it for Bill Ayers once over at Reagan National. But aside from that, I'm just kidding. I got to be careful because some dingbats actually think I meant it. I mean, if it happened, I wouldn't be surprised. But, I mean, Obama can barely contain himself here. We had the news, here comes a guy he's going to be able to hide behind in order to advance his agenda that nobody voted for. And he's going to be hiding behind Pope Francis in order to get this done. So he and Muchel are driving out there, and they're going to greet the Pope as he gets up. 1986, when Gorbachev came over to save America from Ronald Reagan, if you remember, in the 6 years, fifth year of Reagan's term, and everybody's still worried he's going to hit the nuclear button. And the arrival of Gorbachev was, it was so exciting for the people in Washington, State Department even, and the media. But Reagan didn't go out there to greet Gorbachev. They didn't even see. Gorbachev and his wife, Raisa, who basically, this is another thing. I don't know if you remember this or not. They're trying to make this Gorbachev wife out to be some fashion leader. What a joke. I mean, it was an absolute joke. Raisa, we learned later that she had, as many do, alcohol problems. But they landed at Andrews Air Force Base, and they just immediately went to where the Soviet embassy. And Gorbachev and Raisa repaired to the bedroom and stayed there to adjust the time zone for a while, then finally had their meeting at the White House with Reagan. In this instance, Obama and Muchel are going to be out there to greet the Pope when he lands. It's not a long flight up here from Cuba. He's on an Alitalia jet, which is it's a capitalist. It's a capitalist airline. Well, parts of it are. I think it's an Airbus. No, is it an Airbus or is it a 767? No, I think it's an Airbus that he's on. It would matter because one's a capitalist manufacturer, one's a socialist manufacturer. Thomas Sowell has a column today about the Pope and his arrival, but primarily it's about the Pope's message. And I have highlighted three things that Sowell has written here because they're brilliant. And what they again do, they take issue with the Pope and his belief that the objective for all of humanity is to end poverty. And, of course, the Pope believes that we've all done a rotten, horrible job of it, and that governments need to get bigger, and they need to become populated with more and more compassionate people to find ways to get rid of poverty. And, of course, Thomas Sowell points out that there's one way to get rid of poverty. But let me read to you what he wrote, because it's really, really good, folks. Any serious look at the history of human beings over the millennia let's say from the beginning of time, any serious look at the history of human beings over the millennia shows that the species began in poverty. And therefore, it's not poverty that needs explaining. Rather, prosperity is what needs explaining. Poverty is automatic. Poverty is the natural state. This goes, I'll tell you the reason I like this, is because it goes right at my definition of American exceptionalism, which is that since the beginning of time, the existence for most of the world's human beings has been bondage, tyranny, poverty, dictatorship. It certainly has not been liberty. It has not been freedom, not until the United States came along. And that's not an exaggeration. The United States of America, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, are the first time, well, Magna Carta. But really, in terms of forming a government and country, the first time where the concept of human liberty and human freedom came first and was the defining characteristic and was what was to be preserved. Not the creation of government, not the existence of government, not the growth of government, not the sustenance of government. No. It was all about acknowledging God's creation of humanity as yearning for freedom, endowed with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Never before did it happen. So Sowell is right here. The human species began in poverty. Nobody had anything. Prosperity is what needs explaining. It's like success and failure. Nobody needs to go read a book to know how to fail. Everybody already knows how to do that. People naturally fail. They fail all the time. But success, well, you'll find all kinds of people got rich writing books on how to succeed and still do. Same thing with prosperity. The point here is that becoming prosperous is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Becoming prosperous is the way out of poverty. Common sense, by definition. So how do you do it? How do you become prosperous? That's what Sowell says needs explaining. And prosperity is directly related to capitalism, not poverty. Poverty is related to natural existence. There's that word natural again. You know, the drive-bys and the Democrats, the environmentalist wackos, nature, natural this, natural that is by far the way the best. Natural, nature condemns people. Nature is what needs to be adapted to. Nature is what needs to be overcome, such as building shelter for ourselves, not just living under trees. Adapting to nature and doing so with prosperity, that's the lesson of life. That's what everybody wants to know. That's what everybody wants. That's how you do it. It's not the message of this Pope. The message of this Pope and every other leftist in the world is that prosperity is causing poverty. Prosperity and success do not cause poverty. Prosperity and success do not leave people out by definition. Not everybody's going to be prosperous. Nobody ever have. Everybody can be poverty-stricken. It's the way the human species began. And the thing that has always fascinated people is wealth and how it's acquired and how it's held. Whether you like the sound of that or not, it happens to be true. But what's happened over the course of the years, it is the quest for prosperity has become the reason, they say, people are in poverty. And that's why liberalism, socialism, communism seeks to punish achievement, because achievement is deemed to be the reason people are in poverty. And therefore, we need to take from those people who've succeeded, because they really are just lucky winners of life's lottery. So we must take from them what is not fairly theirs and give it to some big entity over here, either the government or now Bono, and let him distribute it and make things fair. Make things fair. Another pull quote from the Thomas Sowell piece. Any serious look at the history of human beings over the millennia shows that the species began in poverty. And again, it's prosperity that needs explaining. Poverty is automatic. As distinguished economic historian David S. Landis put it, the world has never been a level playing field. Of course, right there, the left would stop me and scream, that's right, and that's why nothing has ever been fair, and that's why we must make sure that everybody has an equal chance of fair playing field. And that's the excuse for liberalism, that it somehow is social justice, that it equalizes everybody. False premise, can't be done. But here's the question, folks. Which has a better track record of helping the less fortunate? Fighting for a bigger slice of the economic pie or producing a bigger pie? Let me ask that question again, because I think it and its answer are profound. Which has a better track record of helping the poor? Fighting for a bigger slice of the economic pie or producing a bigger pie? Growing the pie or keeping a finite-sized pie and have everybody fighting for a bigger piece of it? Zero-sum game. Yep, the pie is only so big, it's never going to get any bigger. What we need is a referee to make sure that the pieces of the pie are parceled out fairly. That's why we need a great compassionate person like Obama or the Pope to make sure that the pieces of the pie are not extraordinarily large for the undeserving and microscopically small for the truly deserving. And this also includes the idea that there is virtue in poverty and sin in success. And that's dangerous. That is really, really dangerous, if you ask me. But that's where we are in the evolution of things today. Get this, some statistics. In the year 1900, only 3% of American homes had electric lights. By the end of the century, more than 99% of American homes had electric lights. What made that possible? A big government collecting revenue and spreading it around fairly and then calling on people to invent electricity? How did it happen? Did it happen because of prosperity? Who was responsible for the prosperity? Another stat. Infant mortality rates in 1900 were 165 per thousand. You know what that means? For those of you in Rio Linda, what that means is for every 1,000 people born, 165 died. Infant mortality rates. In 1997, 97 years later, the infant mortality rate was 7 per 1,000. It's quite a reduction from 165 per 1,000 in 1900 to 7% by 1997. By 2001, most Americans living below the official poverty line had central air conditioning, had a car, had cable TV with multiple TV sets and other amenities. Poverty in the United States isn't even close to what real poverty is around the world. And remember, poverty is how the species began. It is not poverty that needs explaining. We don't need any experts to come along and tell us what poverty is. What needs to be explained is prosperity. Poverty is automatic. Prosperity requires many things, none of which is equally distributed around the world or even within a given society. Prosperity does not have equal distribution. Never has. And this is why it's such a juicy target. Prosperity deemed to be ultimately unfair because it isn't for everybody. But it is part of a growing pie. You can be prosperous for 5 years and lose it all, be back in poverty. It's up to you. But prosperity requires a lot of things, none of which prosperity does not require equal distribution around the world or even within a given society, because it isn't possible. And I just wanted to share that with you because for the next 5 days, you are going to hear nothing anywhere remotely like that. You're going to be deluged with how unfair your country is, how unfeeling. You're going to be told how your country isn't doing enough, hasn't done enough. You aren't doing enough. You might hear how your country and you are selfish. You might even hear how your country has taken things that it does not deserve and are not its own from other parts around the world. You're going to hear all kinds of things the next 4 or 5 days to try to convince you how unjust, socially unjust, your country is. You have been warned. Your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, with half my brain tied behind my back. Just to be fair. And here is Tracy in Richmond, Virginia. Great to have you on the program. Hi.
Hi, Rush. It's a pleasure to speak with you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And I have to give a shout-out to Mr. Snerdley because I feel like a young, inexperienced actress that I passed my first screen test with a great producer.
Oh, there you go.
I just wanted to say, anyone who's listened to you for as long as I have, and I've been listening to you for over 20 years, you don't tell us your opinion. You try to make us think. And you did something about 6 or 8 weeks ago that told me a ton. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You do not have guests.
Oh, now, wait. Well, hold it. Just one.
Okay.
I do. You're going to have people scratching their heads out there. I give my opinion all the time on a lot of things. Now, I do not endorse during primaries. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make sure that people don't think that you don't know what you're talking about, because I give my opinion here on everything all the time.
Absolutely.
All
but
right.
You also try to make us think for ourselves.
Well, that is more true than you know.
Which I appreciate, because I have learned to think because of listening to you.
Thank you.
I analyze things differently because I listen to you. And you did something, I'm going to say 6 or 8 weeks ago, I'm not sure exactly of the timeline. You had Dick and Liz Cheney on about their book. They were invited guests to promote their book. Okay? You rarely do those kinds of things. But about 6 or 8 weeks ago, Ted Cruz called out Mitch McConnell as a liar. And that same day, you had him on the show for 30 minutes. That told me everything I needed to know.
About what?
About your viewpoint on who is conservative and who's not.
Aha.
It told me your point of view. It told me you agreed with what he did, which I agreed with what he did. I was already a fan before
You are
that.
very shrewd out there, Tracy.
I am a horrible human being, I know.
No, you're very shrewd, I said. Not a shrew. I said you're very... I said you're very shrewd in your perceptions here.
Well, I just think that we need that. We need what Ted Cruz did. We need calling them out for who they are. And I took issue with Barb. I've never called them before,
I appreciate that. I know what she got there. And we stick with the phones. We're going to go back to Mike in St. Louis. Mike, great to have you on the EIB network via KMOX. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Rush. Thanks for taking my
You
call.
bet.
I wanted to make a comment about Carly Fiorina. I think that the environment from which she comes, which is corporate America, and I worked in corporate America for more than 20 years, is the most politically correct environment you're going to find. I mean, we had diversity training, mandatory diversity training. We were measured. We had to take tests on diversity. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that it creates an attitude towards political correctness, just to use diversity as a particular example, that she would carry into a position like the White House. So that's why I like Ben Carson and Donald Trump, because they're standing up against the forces of PC, and I can't see Carly Fiorina really standing up to the forces of PC.
Now, you having said that, I've had a lot of people, and I've read, too, a number of people who watched the last debate, which was universally decided in her favor, that she mopped the floor with those schlubs. As some people said, that wait a minute, now she threw the gender card down there. She's got this victim chip on her shoulder, and she's not at all restrained in using it and playing it. Now, given your sensitivity to diversity training and CEO and corporate human resources stuff, did you see that yourself? Did you think that when you watched the debate, if you watched it?
Well, I didn't watch it. I mean, let me just say that I would prefer her certainly to Hillary Clinton. I mean, there's no question about that, to any Democrat.
Well,
really, there's a lot of things about her that I really admire.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's really, it wouldn't be a showstopper for me to not vote for her because I think that she'd be soft on political correctness. But I just think that if you have other alternatives to her, like Trump and Carson, I would prefer them based on the fact.
Well, what I've got you here, I have these two sound bites. We can listen to these with you on the other end of the phone here. She was on The Tonight Show last night with Jimmy Fallon.
Mm-hmm.
And we have two bites. The first one, Fallon says, Ben Carson in a lot of trouble now. Because he's not in a lot of trouble. He's in trouble with the screwballs in the media. He's gaining support. He's not in trouble. Anyway, the question, Ben Carson's in a lot of trouble now because he's saying he would not advocate a Muslim being president.
I think that's wrong. You know, it says in our Constitution that religion cannot be a test for office. I actually believe that people of faith make better leaders, whether they're Christians, whether it's a person of Christian faith or Jewish faith or Muslim faith or other faiths. I think faith gives us humility and empathy and optimism, and I think those are important things.
So you would be fine with that?
Yes, I would be fine with that.
Yeah, and
Okay, your reaction to that, Mike? Is that a little diversity on parade there, political correctness, or is that okay?
Yeah, I think it's political correctness. I think that it's really only a half statement. I was reading on the web what she said. It says in our Constitution that religion cannot be a test for office, but she doesn't mention that religion cannot supersede the Constitution, particularly when you take an oath to uphold the Constitution when you take an oath for any office, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know where it says in the Constitution that religion cannot be a test. I've not seen that. I know she's talking about separation of church and state, but it seems to me that Ben Carson's right on this. Hey, look, if you have a religious belief that makes the Constitution secondary or even third-rate status to your religious beliefs, sorry, bud, you're not wanted. Nobody. The oath of office is to defend and protect the Constitution, not to subordinate it.
Right, and Sharia law would subordinate the Constitution.
Subordinate it? It'd be lucky if it got away with just being subordinated. It'd be lucky if it still existed in the National Archives.
Right, and I think that the fact that she did not say that is an indication of...
Oh, well, it's politics. She's trying to capitalize on what she really hopes is something that tripped Carson. Because remember, in the polls, it's her and Carson who are rising.
Yeah.
And Trump supposedly is falling. Trump's all ticked off, by the way, at people that report that. He's got another boycott of Fox News going on now because they reporting a poll that shows him losing ground. Okay, here's the next Carly soundbite. Question from Jimmy Fallon. Vladimir Putin is saying he wants to meet with Trump when he comes here and that he wants to sit down and have a conversation with him. Have you met Putin?
I have. Well, the two of them have a lot in common, actually, but we'll just leave it at that. I would describe him as a formidable adversary. He's very confident. He actually can be quite funny and charming, but he's a KGB guy. You know, we should never forget this.
He's also quite buff, and he wants everybody to know it. Okay, what's your reaction to that one? Mike, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but you did make a statement about her and the diversity in the corporate world and so forth. How are you reacting to this?
Well, let me respond in a more general way. Let me just say that I was struck by the competence, the ability of the women that I worked with in the corporate world. I thought they were marvelous. I think that she would make a great president. I just wanted to make the point that in terms of political correctness, I prefer Trump and Carson, and I think that that's kind of shows a little bit of a weakness in her getting support from people that are against PC. Makes her more of an establishment candidate to me, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Well, another question here on Carly Fiorina and her time in corporate America, as you have spent some time. Are you aware of the, I think it's, was it Fortune or Forbes, a really devastating piece on her time at Lucent Technologies before AT&T spun it off?
Funny you should mention that. Well,
it sounds like you're hyperventilating out there. What did I do?
Well, corporate America is cold. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if when your project ends, you get laid off and you have to find another job in the company if you're lucky. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying that that's bad. That's capitalism, and I guess that's what's made the country great.
Well, but are you aware of what the allegation is against her at Lucent?
I don't know. Could it be any worse than what politicians have done to America?
Well, you tell me. I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
There was a practice that evolved in that particular area of the tech world. Mm-hmm. They were laying. This is back in the days of WorldCom. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And Global Crossing. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you know what? Global Crossing is Gary Winnick, who was a Clinton buddy, who ran the company in the ground and walked away with $100-some-odd million for it because of his donations to the Democrat Party. He's got a $65 million house overlooking the Bel Air Country Club, and I have to look at the damn thing every time I go out there and play. Okay. Winnick's inside the damn thing. It ticks me off. It shouldn't, but it does. And so you had WorldCom, those guys.
Right.
Well, they were laying fiber optic cable all over the country in preparation for massive economic growth, massive internet growth, much more growth than was indicated. And of course, the dot-com bubble came along and blew up. What happened was Lucent, under Fiorina,
right.
She was, and not the only company, they started, in order to sell the products and services they had, they started loaning customers the money to buy the products.
Yeah.
Well, that's not really selling anything. That's padding the bottom line. That is exactly what happened in the subprime mortgage prices. You have customers that cannot afford a mortgage, so you give them the money anyway. You pad your bottom line if you're the lending institution, and then you sell that debt to some unsuspecting schlub who thinks he's got a steady income stream coming. Well, according to this magazine story, that's exactly what happened, and Lucent, on paper, looked great, but the stock price plummeted because of all of this. And it was said to have been one of the biggest managerial blunders. And Trump referred to this in the debate, but he didn't refer to the specifics. He said, if you think she was bad at Hewlett-Packard, you should look into what happened at Lucent. And this is what he was talking about.
Okay. So what was she, the CEO or what?
She was CEO of Lucent, yeah.
Okay. But, I mean, don't
before
the CEO
HP
just act at the behest of the board of directors? I mean, she's not completely culpable for it, is she? I mean, doesn't
well, but no, but she was a CEO. They started listing this loaned money as profit,
as revenue.
Yeah, as profit revenue. That they were loaning money. In other words, their customers were not interested in buying the. They had overmanufactured. They had a glut of supply.
Okay,
so they started loaning the money to customers to buy it, right. And they padded the sales figures and then reported that loan money.
Okay.
As profit.
So is that illegal?
Well,
unethical, possibly.
I don't want to label it. I'm not of that world.
Okay.
But it doesn't sound. All I know, when I try to apply to things like this, what would happen to me if I did it? And it was found out about. That's how I think of things like this.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
What if every advertiser in this program was being given the money by us to buy the commercials, and we were reporting massive profits if we were publicly traded, which we're not? But that's essentially what was going on. It's exactly what happened in the subprime crisis.
I don't know. I'm sure that there's somebody out there right now that's yelling at the radio saying, "What about this and what about that?" I can't think of anything right now, but it sounds like the way they run the government with their budget and everything.
Well, in that case, we may be talking about perfect qualifications, too. So you just never know. By the way, there is a name for that practice of loaning money to your customers so that they can buy your product. It's called vendor financing. And Carly Fiorina, Lucent said in its filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission they had no choice because all of their competitors were doing that. And that's the only way they could stay viable. I mean, their competitors were out doing this kind of stuff, so we had no choice. We're talking about big sums of money here. From the Fortune magazine piece, in an SEC document filed just after Fiorina's departure from Lucent, the company revealed that it had $7 billion in loan commitments to customers, many of them financially unstable startups. They essentially were giving, they call this stuff loans, but if it's not paid back, what are you doing? They were giving money away and calling it profit. They were giving money away to create the illusion of sales. And they were, and when that was discovered, that's when the stock price naturally plummeted. That's not a solid foundation. And so it was loaned money, but it was I'll tell you what it sounds a little bit like is Obama and Solyndra. Except in Obama and Solyndra, you've got a political issue actually taking place. What you've got is money laundering for money to end up back in the Democrat Party coffers. It's a way to pay back donors by having the government invest in a totally fraudulent, non-existent, phony business like solar power. It's got all the goodies. It's got great intentions. It's got clean, renewable energy. It's got wonderful people. It's got Obama lowering the seas. The problem is it's all a scam. It starts out with people donating to Obama to get him elected. Here comes the payback, a loan from the Treasury, not from Obama, to the guy who lent the money, and he has started this company called Solyndra. And it's ostensibly the wind business, solar business, but of course there's no business there, really. There's a building with a sign on it, but there wasn't any business. It eventually goes bankrupt, so nobody that it owed money got paid to, but it got some of the money it gave Obama back. Clean. And it ended with everybody, oh, man, what a great effort. They've tried, man. You really tried solar energy, trying to clean up this putrid, evil planet made filthy by Bush. So, see, it all works out. It was all political. At Lucent and WorldCom, well, WorldCom and Global Crossing were Solyndra type. WorldCom was, I mean, the CEO of WorldCom, jail, prison. Terry McAuliffe ended up getting $15 million for. I think that was a Clinton finder's fee on a real estate. But yeah, he was. But Global Crossing was the fiber optic cable that really never had anything. That Winnick is the guy that made out like a bandit in that during the Clinton years. And all of this is all about, now Lucent has nothing, I don't think Lucent has anything like those kinds of political connections. It's just that the model, whatever Lucent was doing, vendor financing, is essentially what the subprime loan program was. Let me grab another quick call here. This is Teresa in Houston. Teresa, I'm glad you waited. Welcome to the program. Hi.
It's an honor, Rush. Because of you, I have an iPhone, and because of your books, I remember American history, and because of you, I just returned from Normandy paying tribute to our soldiers.
Oh, my God, you have hit the trifecta. You went to Normandy.
Yes, I did.
Oh, isn't that something?
It is. It's very humbling, bittersweet, and we gave our tribute and our prayers to our soldiers. Listen, because of you also, my mind is clicking. And you have often said there's no coincidences. And a couple days before the last debate, you had heard rumor that Carly Fiorina was sent to take Donald Trump down. And I felt that some of the questions were just a little too formulaic, with her answers almost exactly matching the questions. And then yesterday, and I like Scott Walker, he was one of my 4, but his parting comment concerns me, that the donor class and the media are picking our candidate.
Yep.
And I'm even more determined than ever to make sure that Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, or Ben Carson are my candidate, whatever it takes. And I thank you for helping my mind start thinking that way.
I wish I could tell you how your call is making me feel. All these things you did because of me. I'm really deeply moved, and it's a good thing I seriously believe in everything I tell you about here. You're going to go do it. But I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it, and you're on the right path here in your thinking. California Native Americans are not happy with Pope Francis because he's going to make a saint out of Father Junipero Serra. The Native Americans think that the Father Serra mistreated him. A little bit of a controversy brewing out there.